Hello and welcome back to WTFMCP. My name is Jay Shalansky, and joining me again is Tim France from the Professional Casual Network. What's up, Timmy?
Not a whole lot, man. Just back from Adepticon. Not recovered, but definitely back.
Same. Same. Yeah, so Tim and Professional Casuals got to do a bunch of amazing stuff. You guys always do great work, but if you guys haven't had a chance, they streamed MCP for the whole weekend. They actually streamed the AMG announcement whatever you
Mhm.
call it, their
The panel reveal or
panel.
studio
Yeah,
reveal.
yeah, studio reveal, which you guys did a fantastic job in all of that. They got to do some great interviews
Mhm.
and conversations with a bunch of AMG staff. I think, what was it, Dallas, Schick,
Yep.
anybody, those two,
Nope.
both of those?
Just
Yeah,
those two.
yeah,
We also covered all the Shatterpoint stuff as well.
nice. Yeah, right. And so I highly recommend go check out Professional Casuals. They do great work. They're good guys, except for that Taylor. I don't like him. No,
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
No, listen, he's an intern. Like, he's on a probationary basis. It just kind of happens.
Yeah, yeah, we got to get rid of him. But other than that, Professional Casuals is a great network. They also do all kinds of RPG stuff, crazy stuff. I go support them, join their Patreon, do whatever you can to keep these guys alive because they're national treasures, and we need to keep them going. So
I wouldn't go that far, but I appreciate it.
yeah. But yeah, so today on WTF MCP, we're gonna take a little bit for the next couple episodes, we're gonna kind of take a little sidestep from our learning MCP, and we're really gonna talk about the other aspects of MCP coming out of Adepticon. And so today's episode is gonna be about the hobby. Because it just so happens that at Adepticon, I was fortunate to win an award with my teammate Nick, best painted for our display and army in the teams tournament. And so, we thought it might be topical and relevant to talk about hobby today.
That's right. Congratulations. You're now an
Oh, thanks.
award-winning painter.
That's right. Like if anybody ever wants to talk to me about painting, I will make sure I bring that up every time.
I mean, just starting every sentence with, as an award-winning
Yeah, yeah.
painter.
Yeah, yeah. I can't now like if you guys want me to come they do this great stream on Mondays where Taylor paints stuff, and I was on it a couple weeks ago. If you guys ever want me back on that, I'm gonna have like a rider and a fee. Like I only want green M&Ms.
M&Ms. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And medium rare steak delivered to my home 10 minutes
Mhm.
prior to the stream. And yeah, I was just gonna have a lot of demands now.
I think the best way to do that too is to announce that you're an award-winning painter for things that aren't relevant to it. Like in the line at the DMV, well, as an award-winning painter, I should
Right.
not have to fill out this form. You can do that for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or like if I'm ever on like one of your regular streams for like a game, be like, as an award-winning painter, I would probably move Wolverine up there. Like just things that aren't relevant to anything.
Absolutely.
But no, we were very fortunate. There was a couple other displays. They both won. They won best display and best theme, which was really great that they categorized that. And then we actually were really lucky that we got invited to the showcase as well, which for those of you who don't know, it used to be called Armies on Display. I think it's called the Adepticon now. And basically what they do is they take all the displays that people have made from every game, they put you down the main hallway, and people can come and ask you questions, and then you get judged by YouTube famous painters,
Mhm.
and then there's a top three awarded. Unfortunately, we didn't make the top three, which is fine because the people that did had amazing boards. But I've been telling everyone now that now I know where I need to be. Like I wasn't expecting any of that. I wasn't expecting to win or to make it to showcase. But now that I know what that is and that that's a possibility for me, now I know like where we have to be from a display
Yeah.
standpoint. So
Well, and some of the judges too, wasn't like Miniac and
yeah,
Ninjon and stuff there.
yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So it was cool seeing them, and yeah, the whole thing was great. But yeah, so today we're gonna talk about hobby. Um, I don't know how to start this, Tim, but I guess we could talk about painting. So if you're new to hobby and you're new to miniatures, one of the things that we always get asked a lot is how do you prime your miniatures, right? And I think
Mhm.
that's probably a good place to start. You can literally go to Walmart and you can get primer from Walmart as long as it says plastic on it as well. And you can use that to prime minis. I would use like a matte or a satin. That's where I would start. I don't know what you do, Tim.
Well, so great question. I
Yeah.
actually am just starting the hobby portion. I've been playing
Oh,
minis
really?
games for a long
Yeah.
time, and I have yet to actually fully paint a model, but it is
Oh,
something that is like actively in progress right now. I had
oh,
started a an entry for the Worthy, got nowhere close to done, but yeah, no. So I'm kind of just starting my own hobby
oh,
journey.
perfect. All right. Well, hey, great.
A little bit
Yeah,
of a role reversal, right? I can
yeah, a
learn
little
from an
bit.
award-winning painter.
You could right now. Yeah, so that's always the first question I've always gotten coming from the Legion world is like how do you prime them? And you could get I think it's like Rust-Oleum from like your local Walmart or hardware store. As long as it says bonds to plastic, they're good to go. Generally I do a black coat and then I take a white and I just go over the top of the minis from where the light direction is coming. It's just a good way to start your minis because when you go to put paint over them, whether you're using an airbrush or a regular brush, it'll already kind of give you those highs and lows underneath that other solid coat of paint. So
Mhm.
you'll get your shadows and stuff right away, and then you can build up from there.
Now, when you
Uh,
say like when you're priming it or spraying it from like the source of light, is that what
yeah,
people kind of refer to as is object source lighting? Is that
yep,
the term?
yep. OSL, yep. So there's multiple versions of that, right? So you could have object source light could be the sun. Okay, so that's like the first one you start with, or moon, or whatever large light that you're looking at. And so you kind of like, I generally just do top, or maybe like from a like a let's see, so that would be 90, that maybe like a 70-degree angle. And that's kind of I'll hit it with a white top, and that gives me my source light. And then there's OSL or object source light, which is lightning or like a power up or like a energy sword
Oh, like a
or
red skull holding like the cube. Is
or the
that like,
cube, right?
yeah.
And then when you're painting from that, that's a whole different thing. And basically, I think where a lot of people, if we're talking specifically about that, where a lot of people fall down on that is they take the color of whatever the source is and they just kind of paint it on the mini. But what you're doing is you actually need to mix the color with a little bit of white and then the color you're painting on top of, and you're bringing that up to be the color that you need
Oh, interesting.
into that brightness. Because if you just go over, it'll be too red. Because like if you look at my lights now, right, this
Hmm.
light is white, but on my skin it's still a flesh tone color.
Hmm.
So instead of just painting white on here, I actually have to build it up to this brightness, which is right here on my shiny forehead. Um, I actually have to bring that color up from this like pink tan that I have, and then coming up to the light. So that's just there's a quick that's like an advanced technique, but that's something for you there,
I never
team.
would have thought of that too, especially like with the example of Red Skull holding
Yeah.
the cosmic cube, right? I was like, oh well, I guess you just make it a lighter blue and put it on. But mixing some of the source color of the area that the light is going to be shining on makes literally all the sense in the world. But I never would have discovered that naturally.
Yeah, and you just build up, right? And then what you do is you start close to the source material as you can, and then just build up from there, and then that'll help you like get that kind of like light sourcing. Here's another quick tip for everybody. Did you know no matter what flesh you're painting, no matter what color, you should always start with red or pink on flesh
Oh,
because we're all red or pink on the inside.
that's
Now
true.
there's some aliens that but even with like greens or alien like creatures, always starting with red or pink is going to give you a better tone when you're building up from there.
Hmm.
Also, if you're painting yellow, like for instance, Wolverine, I start with pink. Yellow on pink is much, much easier and it gives it a much solid color.
So that's super interesting. At an event I went to in New Jersey not too long ago for MCP, I played against a guy that had a Cyclops, right?
Yeah.
The blue was already on there, but like the bandolier and the visor was pink. I was like, oh, that's an interesting like color scheme. And he's like, oh, I'm building up to the yellow.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, what? And so that makes all the sense in the world now as well. That's not just a quick tip, but a award-winning quick tip.
Yeah. This is coming from an award-winning painter. Yeah, I mean, let's see, what other tips can I give you guys? So, I think if if you're new to the hobby and you want to get something table ready, one thing I always recommend to people is forget all the extra steps. Like forget washes, dry brush, layering, just forget all that. If it's your first mini, prime it black. Make sure it's matte or satin. You don't want gloss because that'll throw things off. Matte or satin or flat. Those are all great. So you prime it black. You come in it with your white from where you want the sun or your brightest light source to come from. Single color everything else. So don't just go like if it's blue for like their shirt, just paint to the blue that you want. Don't try highlighting or doing anything. That's the first place to start. Because from 3 feet away, if you just have solid colors, they're still gonna look good.
Yeah.
So like if you ever play a game that has pre-painted minis like Dungeons and Dragons Onslaught or anything like that, they don't get crazy. It's just solid colors.
Hmm.
It's the same with cartoons. Like if you look at cartoons, a lot of cartoons don't have multiple colors. It's just one color. It's just the blue of the shirt.
Now, to cycle back to the different types of primers that you mentioned,
Yeah.
what's the difference between like a matte and a satin or a flat?
Yeah, so it's the type of light it reflects.
Okay.
So matte, or I think it's flat, doesn't really reflect much light at all. Matte is a little bit more, satin's a little bit more, and then you have gloss and then super gloss, right? Some people, I find that for minis, matte, satin, and flat are all interchangeable as far as acrylic paint on top of it. Satin will give you, or matte, sorry, matte will give you a little bit more of a sheen sometimes. But flat and satin are just like it just looks devoid of any like reflection. Um,
Gotcha.
I do like I do like to do matte and satin to give me a little bit of reflection because when you're painting and you want to paint it up and see some of those reflections or where the light's going to be hitting it, it's good to have the actual paint reflect a little because then you're just kind of painting over the natural reflections and
Mm.
just bringing them up a little bit.
Now, is there like based on the material that like say like a Cyclops visor
Yeah.
or a Juggernaut helmet, is there a way to kind of prime it metallic, or is that just kind of not something that's done?
Yeah, you can. The problem is the whole model will end up because it's hard to prime, especially with rattle cans, which are spray cans. It's hard to prime specific areas, right? So
Gotcha.
there are other tricks like you could potentially, let's say you have the Hulk, right, who's primarily green. You could prime him green, right?
Oh,
And then just paint his pants and his hair and pick out the details and then I mean you that would be it and you would be ready to go to a tournament.
so really outside of like something like a Colossus or like a Sentinel, that makes a whole lot of sense. So you're
Yeah.
not going to prime the entire thing because you don't want the flesh tones and stuff
No.
to also be metallic.
And like if you're going to do a Sentinel or like a Colossus, yeah, I think you could prime in whatever the most color that's going to be on your mini, right? Is going to be so Colossus is silver, right? You could prime in like a silver, and then paint over it. But you could also, if you take like a Sentinel, right? You could prime it in a Sentinel, and then you could get some of the new like the new paints that are like colors or speed paints, and you could come over the like pink and the blue of the Sentinels with a speed paint, and that silver will shine through, so it'll look
Oh,
metallic, but it'll look blue metallic.
okay. Now I've heard a lot about speed painting and what's the particular technique is of slap chop, and I know
Yeah,
you prime black for that, and that's like adding some contrast paints and then just highlights after that. Would
yeah.
you
So
recommend something like that for someone that's just starting painting, or is that kind of
yeah,
maybe a bad habit
that's a
to
great question. So slap chop is kind of what I explained in the beginning with a slight difference with the white. So you go black. Then you dry brush. So dry brushing, for those of you that may be new to the hobby, is you take a brush that's a wide brush. You don't want your detail brush. You want a big wide brush. I actually use makeup brushes,
Mm,
like those big puffy makeup brushes that you could find for like 50 cents to a dollar. And you get a little bit of paint on it. And what you do is you could like brush it onto like a napkin or like your hand or another piece of plastic. I like keeping like a 3D printed piece of plastic next to me to like dry to like hit the brush with. And what you're doing is you're just basically barely touching the surface quickly of the model. And what you're trying to do is raise those edges to a lighter color. Okay. And so
okay.
with slap chop, you prime black and then you dry brush the entire model with a white or a light gray. And it's just, you don't want a lot of paint on your brush. It's just enough so that like if you scrape it across your hand, you see a little bit of white on your hand. And you just do that across the whole mini. And then you put speed paint or colors on there. And that basically gives you all your shadow and highlights throughout the color.
Oh,
The
okay.
thing I always caution people, because they sell speed paints as if they're going to make you a brilliant, miraculous painter, right? The thing I always caution people is still treat it as if it's real paint. And what I mean by that is when you're doing the work, make sure you're meticulously painting in with your brush and coloring like you would as if it's real paint, because it's very much it's more
More like an ink, right?
yeah, yeah, it's thinner than paint. It's not as thin as a wash. Wash is just like basically dyed water. It's between paint and wash. And so it'll start to spread. So you want to make sure you hit the high of, let's say you have a muscle that's round, right? You start at the highest point and then kind of work your way down into the crevices between other pieces. That's the best way to do speed paint. And it's the same way you would paint with normal paint.
Okay.
But the difference with that is speed paint, you only have to paint once and you're tabletop ready. So you don't have to ever do highlights or like go back over with another color. You're just ready to go.
So as far as like rushing to like get three colors on something to bring it into an event that
Yeah.
requires it, speed paint's a great way to go.
Yeah.
Can you, if you do like slap chop or speed paint something at the start, is there still room to work with if you wanted to take it back after that event and really fine
Oh
tune
yeah.
it?
Yeah, you could build on top of that speed paint. And like a lot of big painters do that where they, depending on like what piece of the model they're working on, they'll even incorporate speed paint on different parts of the model. You know, like
Okay.
Sarastro does that, where he'll paint parts of the model in normal, and then let's say he's doing like an alien, he'll do like some of the flesh with a speed paint so that it gives the better of that like layered dark to high, because that's basically what speed paint does is whatever the edge is, if you have an edge, it's it dyes the edge, but the most of the paint is running off into the crevices or the recesses of the model to make those darker, because that's what shadows. So like if we looked at my hand,
Mhm.
right, for the on the top here, see how light that is here, and then as my finger rolls down and gets away from the source light, it starts to get darker here in the crevices.
Mhm.
So speed paint, if I had speed paint, I painted this, basically it's leaving a trace here, like almost like food color. Like if you ever dyed an egg or something,
Yeah.
it'll leave the color trace here, but because it's thicker, it'll actually start to settle within the crease of my two fingers and then become darker here. So let's say I primed my hand black, speed painted white, all the top of my hand, my knuckles, like my nails here, wherever you could see the highest of the high of the light from the light source here, when I dry brush, that would all be white. And then this would be kind of a faded gray down to black here in between my fingers. So then when you speed paint on top of that, it dyes it up here on the white. And then you'll still get that light bright coming through. And then as it comes down here into the darker gray and then the black in these recesses, it actually will just a couple grades above that color dye it. So it'll still be, let's say, green, but it'll be like a dark green down here. And then as you move up towards the edge, it lightens up.
Okay. That I think that's a really good example too with the light that you have there, like
Yeah.
kind of showing like look that yeah, that's
Oh,
I
thanks.
understood that, which is very nice.
Hey,
But
nice.
then again, it's from an award-winning painter, so
Yeah. I'm just an award-winning painter. But yeah, I think Probably, I think that's a great point. I think if you're just starting the hobby today, my biggest recommendation for tools would be get yourself a black primer and a white primer. For, it's like $3 or $4 from Walmart for big rattle cans, and you can do, as far as MCP is concerned, you could do like 50 models or more with just those two cans,
Oh,
right?
with a
So
single. Okay.
yeah, probably everything you have, you could prime with a single can. And then do a white highlight. So if you're outside on your table, I usually put a table, I cover it with some paper. Um, and I hit everything with black. Make sure I got all the surfaces with black, right? And then what I do is I come above it, I spray it white, usually like at a 75-degree angle, and I come down with that and just go nice and quick over all of them. So that's all you need there. Get yourself a set of Army Painter speed paints. I think they're the best and the easiest to use.
Hmm.
And then a brush, like you could, like a like a regular paintbrush. You would see it if you go to any of your hobby stores, your local game stores, they'll have like a layer brush that they're called. And you could just use a standard layer brush. And then what you do is you can either spray with the white, or if you want to do slap chop, which is the dry brush, you get a little white paint and you dry brush the whole thing. And then just start putting down your speed paints in the areas you want to go.
Hmm.
And I
Now,
think you'll find that you'll be able to get to a painted model that looks reasonable by the time you have your event.
now, when you say to prime it black and then you spray from the source of light, are you waiting for the black primer to dry first before
Yes.
you're applying the white? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And with everything, every layer that you do when you're painting, take it from me, I'm an impatient human. And I have learned the hard way that you have to wait for each one to dry. So you hit it with the black, let it dry. Then either do your white spray paint from the top or your slap chop with the dry brush of white. After that's all dried, wait for that to dry. Then do your first color. Let's say for Captain America, you want to do blue. Do all your blues, let that dry. Then do all your reds, let that dry. Then do all your whites. You could do that in reverse. So you could do white first. If like you feel like you're comfortable not painting on top of the white, do the white first and then go blue. But there's different ways you can do that.
Hmm.
And then, I guess one last thing is if you mess up real bad and you want to start over, take your model and put it in 99% alcohol. Like you could get it from the store, you could order it on Amazon. You can actually use 91 or 97%. I like 99%, but get a thing of isopropyl alcohol, put it in a bowl, put your mini in it, let it sit for a few hours, then get a toothbrush and just scrub the mini. All the paint will come right off and it'll go
Now,
right back down to the plastic with no damage.
okay, so that was going to be my question. So that doesn't damage it at all. And if I leave it in overnight,
I've left it
no,
in for weeks before.
nice. Okay.
Now, some of the glue may come off from when you glued your minis together, but just glue it back.
And if you
That
plastic
part's
glued it,
easy. Plastic glue, no, that won't because that actually welds plastic together. Where if you use super glue, that'll actually start to crack a little bit and you'll have to but if you use plastic glue, that actually melts plastic together, instead of just creating a glue layer like super
okay,
glue does. So
nice.
yeah. Oh, this is kind of a longer episode. I guess that's okay. We could keep going if you want, Tim. I don't mind.
Yeah, honestly, any little bit that I can learn
Yeah.
is going
Maybe
to
we
be
turn this into a
immediately useful.
two-parter. All right. So
Yeah.
actually, let's do this. Join us next week
Hmm.
for our second episode on the hobby.
Hell yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Bye.